A Beacon in the Dark by No Haijiachi. Chapter 5. Midoriya, Izuku. Start! Izuku walks down the corridor directed toward his new class for the first time. The need to hang his head low nervously is almost overwhelming, but he resists. He walks by Class 1B on his way, tentatively feeling the lights out, but Kachan's light is not there. His usual luck. Letting out a little sigh, he stops in front of the door to his class. His hand lingers on the handle. New you. He can hear Miki's voice in his mind. Do better, says All Might. Izuku opens the door. As soon as he does, two familiar voices that were previously bickering fall silent. Midoriya, right? One of them says, approaching him. It's the severe boy from the exam. I must apologize for my harsh words during the exam. You've clearly shown a deeper understanding of it than me. I'm Ida Tenya. It is a pleasure to share class with you. Oh, it's no problem, he replies, scratching the back of his head. Midoriya! Another familiar voice, and he cannot contain his smile. Uraraka. We are in the same class! I'm so happy! Oi, Four Eyes! Kachan's harsh voice interjects. Stop standing there with that stupid hand out. He's not gonna shake it. He's blind. There's something in Kachan's voice that Izuku cannot quite pinpoint. His light completely unreadable. He expected sneer from him, but there's none of that. He's actually serious. And as Ida apologizes to him, formal to a fault, Izuku cannot help but smile a bit sadly to himself. As usual, no one manages to make him yearn for sight as much as Katsuki Bakugo does. What would Izuku give just to be able to meet Kachan's eyes and understand what he's thinking? Ochako's hand flew to her mouth. When she first met Midoriya at the exam, she distantly wondered about the hair covering his face, but she had so many things to worry about that it seemed a minuscule, unimportant detail in the grand scheme of things. His hair was much shorter now, still messy and curly, but she could finally see the freckles dusting his red cheeks and his pale green eyes. It was obvious now that Bakugo said it. Midoriya's pupils were milky white, clearly not reacting to the frantic movements of Ida in front of him. How did he... Ochako mentally smacked herself. What right did she have to doubt Midoriya? People wouldn't believe that cute, soft little Ochako could make it into UA, and yet she did. So did Midoriya. She resumed her walk towards him with even more strength in her stride. Ida, I think that is quite enough, she says gently, putting a hand on his shoulder, stopping his hands midway. Midoriya! He turns to her. Oh, Rebecca, I'm glad we are in the same class too, he says, little lines appearing around his eyes when he smiles. She hesitates, and she notices the lines of Midoriya's shoulders tense a bit. Oh, this is embarrassing. I'm so sorry. I was sick all over you at the exams, she blurts out. Midoriya clearly relaxes. Don't worry about it. Outside of your quirk? Yeah, she moans, tilting her head on the side. They told me about what you did, Midoriya adds, his voice lowering. About the points. I wanted to thank you, and... Ida, that so far had been tense and silent at their side, snaps like a soldier's shoulders squared. Yes, it's a pleasure to share class with you too, Midoriya says gently, holding his hand out. Ida takes it in a firm grip and shakes, smiling. They don't get much time to familiarize with one another as the door opens behind them to reveal a man that could probably use about 1,000 years of good sleep, a long sort of scarf covering the lower half of his face, clad in a dark coat. Get to your seats, y'all. This isn't a picnic, he says, his voice monotone. Izuku rapidly counts the desks, making a beeline for his. He's sitting right behind Kachan. How lucky! Amazawa showed up. The man yawns, sounding bored. I'm your homeroom teacher. The good change. We are going out to have a test. Huh. Aizawa drags a hand on his face, tired. Goddamn Toshinori and his stupid, hopeful smile. The man approached him that morning in his all-might form, putting a heavy hand on his shoulder. "A word, my friend, if you please," he boomed, making him groan. "It's too early for this. Just say what you want to say," he replied, voice still raw with sleep. "I saw that young Midoriya has been assigned to your class." "Yes, your golden boy. Go on." "And I cannot help but worry. I do not mean to challenge your teaching methods clearly, but I'm aware of your first day tests. For all his talents and training for the time being, Midoriya is just a normal teenage boy physically. He will not show particularly brilliant results." "Are you asking me to give him a special treatment?" "I would never." Aizawa finally turns, facing the blinding smile. "I'm only asking you to give him a chance to prove himself."
He could not resist that smile.
He wants a chance for the boy? Fine, he was going to get one. Golden Kid better work his ass off and prove he deserved that chance. As the tests went on, the threat of expulsion weighed more and more on Izuku's shoulders, making him spiral into a silent panic. All his classmates could count on their quirks to give them an edge one way or the other, but Izuku was only stuck with his normal body, and for how fast he tried to run, for how high he tried to jump, he was still at the bottom of the chart. Aizawa-sensei finished scribbling something down before addressing them in his monotone voice. "Alright, one last test. Follow me." They dutifully followed. Izuku was hugging himself, head hanging low. He could feel Uraraka's light approaching him, feeling that she wanted to put a hand on his shoulder and comfort him, but he didn't want comfort. He didn't want pity. He was done with pity. He walked a bit faster. "Strength and speed are not all," Aizawa-sensei explained once he stopped them in front of another training ground. Izuku examined it, focusing his senses. It was not much different from the fake city they took the entrance exam in, but it was more packed, the place full of tight openings and all sorts of nooks and crannies. "Your ability to examine the ground you're working in and your senses are just as important. For this test, we will spend the next half hour in here. I will be hiding and your role will be to find me. The first person that finds me gets a point. All you need is to touch me. When that happens, you'll give me 10 seconds of advantage to find a different spot to hide. I will keep hiding in different places for the full time." A little pause, as if Sensei was making sure everyone was listening. "Some of you might not ever see me during that time. Some of you might manage to hoard all the points for themselves. But more probably, at the end of 30 minutes, you will all be at 0. A collective gulp passed through the group, but Izuku is not believing his ears. A blossom of hope back in his chest. This is it. This is main for him. This is perfect. "I will take 10 minutes to hide. Wait at the entrance. When you hear the horn, the time starts." Izuku has to refrain himself from sprinting like a thunderbolt when the horn blares over them. He knows already where Aizawa-sensei is, of course, but in order to not raise too much suspicion between his classmates, he waits for them to sprint ahead before making his way toward their teacher. If everything goes according to plan, they will soon catch up to what is going on, and will probably start to try following him. Izuku has to hoard as many points as possible before that happens. Katsuki has been searching, grunting, irritated by the stupid test, when the horn blew again and a robotic voice announced,
Midoriya, Izuku, 1 point.
His head snaps up at the clock, showing that a mere 2 minutes have gone by. What the heck? He has to admit it, the boy is giving him a run for his money. Aizawa's specialty has always been stealth. Being able to hide to move unseen is what he does. This is a test he usually reserves for older, more experienced classes. But the boy? He's keeping up. Oh, is he keeping up? Aizawa slides under a pipe, silent as a cat. His ears are strained, waiting for Midoriya to betray his position. At 5 points, Todoroki Shoto has started to follow Midoriya, giving the boy another obstacle to surpass, forcing him to not just make a beeline for Aizawa, but to also hide and move unseen himself. At 7 points, Yao Yorozu Momo imitated Todoroki. At 8, Tokoyami Fumikage had the same idea as well. The boy is not half bad, Aizawa has to admit. He managed to shake them off his tail more than once thanks to his quick thinking and his ability to move in dark spaces where others would be completely lost, while simultaneously trying his damn best to creep closer to Aizawa as silent as possible. At 9 points, Aizawa activated his quirk against Midoriya. The boy scrambled, panicked at first, hitting directly with his face a brick wall in his way. Then he jumped out of Aizawa's line of sight. And he started to make a damn good job of keeping it so, popping out from the most unexpected places to claim his points. His 13th point, Aizawa didn't have the chance to even try to lay his eyes on Midoriya before a small hand slapped his back and a robotic voice announced,
Midoriya, Izuku, 13 points.
"Oh, this was fun!" This might have been the most brutal game of hide-and-seek Izuku had ever taken part in. Everyone got up. Literally, his entire class was trying to follow him, obstruct him, steal those points from him. Even Gachan! "I'm sorry, Uraraka," he whispered breathless as the girl was hopefully tailing him from a bit far, her light movements suggesting she was trying to stay hidden from him. There was a pipe on his right between some small ones, large enough for him to pass through. He jumped into the dark space offered by the buildings surrounding them and slid in, silent, biding his time. Uraraka stopped right in front of him, looking around herself madly, and then making a noise of frustration. "Where did he go?" Her frustration felt less brash than Gachan's, more directed to herself, rather than Izuku. It made Izuku feel bad. But he couldn't afford the luxury of worrying about others for now. This was his one chance to not get kicked out of UA on the first day. Aizawa-sensei was on the move and fast, climbing somewhere. Izuku slid outside the pipe on the other side, studying his chances. Sensei stopped and was currently perched between two buildings, the space just enough for one person to fit in. So far, he had preferred the ground for the most part, where the shadows were darker and being unseen was easier. To perch so high, it was a bold move, considering how many of his classmates had high maneuverability and would probably spot him from the sky. Then Izuku realized it was a challenge. Aizawa was trying to force Izuku to take a route that would put him in an easy spottable place. His classmates had fully given up the idea of finding Aizawa themselves and were instead concentrating their efforts on Izuku. If Izuku tried to climb after him from the ground, Sensei would surely use his quirk on him. But if he approached from above, he was sure to be seen, especially from Todoroki, which had been following him like an eagle for a while now. Izuku took a deep breath, wiping the fat droplets of sweat rolling from his forehead with a wrist. He focused harder, taking every single detail of what was around Aizawa-sensei, even if his head felt like splitting in half. And then he saw his way. Bingo! The clock was ticking, and Aizawa wondered if the boy had given up or was just too exhausted to take that one last point. Not that it would matter much. Midoriya had definitely proven himself, but still, he could not imagine such a driven boy ever giving up, not fighting until the last second possible. As he muses, the last minute approaches.
60 seconds remaining.
And then everything happened very fast. Ochako had been running in circles, frustrated. She managed to catch that single glimpse of Midoriya before he disappeared apparently out of thin air, and she hadn't caught a single glimpse of Aizawa-sensei, not even the tip of his scarf. Todoroki was chasing through the sky with his ice bridges, as he had been most of the time. His movements, in more than one occasion, suggested he almost managed to catch Midoriya, but he would usually come back up after a bit, obviously frustrated. Everyone was out for blood at this point, desperate for even a single point to try and stand over the others. But Midoriya wasn't going to give a single inch if he could help it, clearly. Suddenly, she sees Todoroki plunge down, raising his arm ready to attack, before the ice bridge stopped forming under his feet and the ice around his right arm never quite made it out. He fell on the rooftop of the building right under him.
Midoriya, Izuku, 14 points.
The voice announced, and then...
Time's up.
I see. Aizawa was muttering to himself. The boy cooked up quite the bold plan. He led Todoroki on a wild goose chase towards Aizawa and had used him as a distraction while simultaneously luring Aizawa into a trap. Aizawa looked up at the noise, ready to throw Midoriya in for a loop with his quirk, and instead found himself staring at Todoroki, interrupting the attack he was about to unleash and sending him tumbling down as the ice bridge stopped forming under his feet. Midoriya came an instant later, a meteor from the sky, one of his arms frozen over, sweaty and desperate, slapping just barely Aizawa's arm on his way down.
Midoriya, Izuku, 14 points.
Kid was lucky Aizawa didn't have any intention to explain to Toshinori why his golden boy ended up
Flattening his face on concrete.
His scarf tightened around Midoriya's wrist after the slap, stopping his fall, and he lowered both himself and the boy back on the ground, gently. Once there, Midoriya hadn't moved, panting heavily, arms and legs stretched out in a semi-frozen, sweaty imitation of a sea star. He panted. Am I expelled? Aizawa gave him a grin. You're a lucky one, Midoriya, Izuku. They regrouped at the entrance, animatedly discussing.
That was super insane!
The boy that had introduced himself as Kirishima that morning said, excitedly
Bumping his fists in front of him. Sucks I didn't see any of it. It must have been quite the show. I'm so curious to how Midoriya did it.
Ochako couldn't do anything but agree with the sentiment. Listening to Midoriya rack up point after point after point had been both exhilarating and frustrating. Not everyone shared the enthusiasm, she noted when Bakugo passed by, positively
Fuming!
Ida, instead, was muttering to himself. Maybe some kind of perception quirk? Still doesn't explain how he moves so comfortably in an unknown ground. I must ask Midoriya for pointers. Aizawa-sensei, Todoroki, and Midoriya himself were the last ones out. Todoroki had his left hand on Midoriya's right shoulder, melting down the ice that encased his entire arm with a neutral expression. Midoriya looked positively destroyed, his clothes sticking to him, drenched in sweat, walking with a bit of a limp, but showing a small, prideful smile. They all, well, almost all, run to meet them halfway, speaking over one another.
Midoriya, that was so cool! How did you do that? What is your quirk? Midoriya, you must teach me!
Calm down now, all of you, Aizawa said, raising his hand. You all did terribly at this test, except for Midoriya, as you already know.
The enthusiasm died quite fast after that.
But anyway, no one is getting expelled.
He continued, grinning madly.
It was a logical ruse. I wanted to force the best out of all of you. The perfectly synchronized chorus of was definitely a plus ultra.
Midoriya, wait!
Izuku turned around, two already extremely familiar lights catching up to him.
I must say Aizawa-sensei really got to me today.
Ida said from his right, once he and Uraraka took a side of him each, matching his steps.
I had no doubt that an institute as prestigious as UA would only let the best of the best who keep learning between its walls. I see how deception can be motivating now.
It was the same for me, Uraraka replied, at his left, embarrassed. Did you also fall for it, Midoriya? You really gave it all in that last test. Izuku cannot help but let a little laugh out. I swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. I was really grabbing myself, he admitted. After all that work to get kicked out on the first day, no way. Come to think of it, Izuku hadn't detected any lie in Aizawa-sensei's light as he explained who showed poor results would be expelled. Weird.
What the fuck are you laughing about, Deku?
And here we go.
Izuku mutters to himself, deadpan. Kacchan ran up to him, rage pouring out of him in waves. He puts a finger on his chest. Listen here, don't you dare think you're so much better than me.
I don't.
I'm going to crush you on the first occasion.
Yeah, I know.
So don't you go around with that smug face, you useless Deku.
And as fast as he came, off he went.
Is he always this pleasant? Ida asks, the sarcasm out of place in his serious, composed tone.
He was almost friendly this time. Izuku sighs. Is your name Deku? I thought it was Izuku? Uraraka asked, sounding confused. It is. I mean, no, my name is not Deku. That's just what Kachan calls me as an insult. Oh, sorry then, Uraraka says, shifting her weight from foot to foot. But, I kind of like the name Deku. It makes me think of someone that never gives up. Izuku blinks, and for the first time in his life, the word Deku doesn't sound bad anymore. When Aizawa enters in the teacher lounge, there's a little neat pile of boxes of cat food with a note stuck to it sitting on the table. The note just says, "Thank you," with a curved scribble of All Might's signature hair tufts. Aizawa snorts, amused. Ridiculous. Ingo is trying her best not to pace back and forth as she waits for Izuku. She kind of overdid it in her nervousness, and their dinner is already on the table. Finally, the door cracks open, Izuku's voice saying, "I'm home." And when she pops her head out of the kitchen, she sees him, his hair a bit messier, a small bruise on his cheek, tired. Smiling. "Welcome home, dear." Her arms are already around him, her face on his shoulder. "Where did he get this doll? You have to tell me everything." Izuku grins. As she approaches Izuku's room to wish him good night, as she usually do, he can hear his voice. "Yes, I told you! It was crazy!" He's still smiling, lying belly down on his bed, phone against his ear, legs swinging in the air. "And that girl I met at the exam, remember? She's in my class! We walked together to the station with another classmate, Ida. I think they like me." A fond smile finds its way on her lips as she turns around to go to her room. She doesn't need to wish him a good night for today. She knows he's going to sleep just fine. Izuku is almost vibrating in his seat as All Might's light, shining and bright, approaches the classroom. "It's me!" The booming voice starts just outside the room. "Through the door like a normal person!" Excited ripple goes through all the lights of his classmates as they whisper between themselves happily, and even Izuku cannot contain the emotions. It doesn't really matter that All Might had already become pretty much a constant presence in his life well before his start at UA. Now their relationships put them in a different position. All Might is finally going to teach him, directly, for the first time. "Foundational Hero Studies," All Might exclaims, taking place at the teacher's desk. Izuku is so ready! Izuku is not ready! He changed with his excited classmates, happy to put on the costume his mother made for him. He still remembers her excited voice as she described it to him. As usual, he could not really visualize it in his mind, but it did not matter. He let her talk about it, basking in her happiness. He knew the costume was perfect. She hesitated at first, wondering aloud if maybe Izuku would prefer something more professionally made, maybe with some support accessories. But Izuku couldn't really think of any accessory that might support his quirk. It wasn't something physical that could be enhanced by external gadgetry. It was all in his head. Not much you can add to that. He'd much rather put on the costume his mother worked so hard on. All Might guided them to yet another training ground, explaining to them what today's exercise would consist of. They fished letters from a box, and his heart did a little happy skip as he ended up paired with Uraraka. "It's like destiny," she laughed, before adding cheerfully, "Happy to work with you." Izuku had been super happy to work with her too, until his happiness got squashed by what All Might said next. "Our first hero pair, Uraraka and Midoriya," he announced after fishing the letters himself. "This is our first villain pair, Bakugo and Ida." Izuku's heart fell on the floor. "I'm so glad All Might is as nice as he is on TV." Ochako let out a little sigh while she and Midoriya took position. "I was scared they might try to do that whole expulsion thing again." When she turned around, Midoriya was as pale as a ghost, his shoulders drooping. You don't look very relieved." "I'm sorry. Just tense," he replied stiffly. "Bakugo is not very nice to you, is he?" she asked softly. Midoriya took a deep breath before squaring himself. "Uraraka, listen. Kachan is surely going to come for me, so I think I might have a plan." Ochako shifted closer to him. "Tell me. We only have 5 minutes, so listen closely. Here's what we do.
Tenya tried to speak with his partner, but after a couple of sentences, it was clear Bakugo had no interest in planning with him.
Are you even listening?
He asked, exasperated, but as soon as the robotic voice announced the start of the test, Bakugo sprinted away, leaving Tenya alone with the fake nuke. Curses. Kacchan's light was just behind the corner, waiting for him. Izuku was almost disappointed by that. Did Kacchan really expect him to fall for that? He and Uraraka separated as soon as they made their way into the building, as planned. Silently, he fished one of the rocks he collected outside and put in his pocket, launching it towards the corridor Kacchan was in. "Jackalo!" he screamed, jumping out at the noise. Izuku's hand was already on his face. He felt the features under his palm, Kacchan's vaguely crooked nose. His fault. Eyebrows twisted in anger. With all his strength, he pushed down. Kacchan made a little choking sound when his back hit the floor, but rapidly turned and jumped back on his feet. "You shitting!" As predicted, Kacchan's usual right hook came. Izuku dodged, grabbing Kacchan's forearm in the way Ichiko-san taught him, and flipped him over, sending him on the ground again. He did not waste a second, running away from him as Kacchan spluttered and, even more enraged, called after him. "Whoa, did you see that flip? He looked like a professional karateka!" Young Ashido exclaimed, excited, her fists swinging in front of her. "Midoriya is super going toe-to-toe with Bakugo!" Toshinori had to channel all his strength to try remain neutral and don't join in her excitement. "An ambush though? That was so unmanly!" young Kirishima said, gritting his teeth. "An ambush is a valid tactic. This is a battle after all," he exclaimed, his eyes fixed on the screen. He could not wait to see what young Midoriya has come up with that brilliant little head of his. Katsuki was fuming. The little shit managed to knock him down not once, but twice, before running away like the coward he is. He went in hot pursuit. He was so tired of Deku and his little mind tricks. Was he blind? Was he quirkless? Katsuki did not fucking care anymore. All he wanted was a fair fight, face to face, no tricks or traps or other crap. "Come here, Deku!" The little shit was quick, he had to give that. He kept slipping out from his line of sight, dodging his attacks like an annoying little eel, leading him around like a stupid dog on a leash. He kept making those sounds, clicking his tongue against the roof of his mouth. "Stop that!" he blurted, irritated. "Come here and face me!" Somehow, it seemed that the prick was finally listening. He stopped in the middle of an empty room, turned to face him, and charged. Katsuki felt a mad grin breaking on his face. Finally! Deku jumped as if trying to dive over his head. Did he really think he could do something so dumb? Katsuki readied his fist, an explosion on his palm, and punched! His fist connected directly with Deku's stomach. Izuku expected the impact. He knew what he was in for, but his body definitely wasn't all too happy about it. The content of his stomach came out of his mouth as the strength of Kacchan's punch pressed him against the ceiling that crumbled like it was made of sand, and Izuku was shut up in the room just above their heads with all the debris. He turned around, the lights in his head swimming, and felt Ida making a mad dash for him. Away from the bomb. "Uraraka! No!" he coughed, bile burning in his throat. His plan worked. Midoriya stopped the signals, so Ochako stayed still around the corner preparing mentally. It had to be a matter of seconds now. When she heard the explosion and then his voice, strangled barely there, she dashed. As Midoriya predicted, she had a hole in the ceiling, a perfect passage. She jumped up, the bomb to her right, as Midoriya signaled. She didn't waste a single second, giving herself another push on the edges of the hole as she soared to the fake nuke, hugging the tip of it. As the voice announced, "Hero team wins," she turned with a huge smile toward Midoriya, just in time to see Bakugo's punch connect with his face, sending him tumbling and skidding on the floor, Ida screaming, "Bakugo, no!" Tenya is not happy. He is not happy with himself, his performance, or lack thereof.
a glaring issue in front of everyone's eyes, and he's not happy with his partner for the day that ignored him, went alone on some kind of personal revenge quest, and to top it all, hit a classmate so hard to make him pass out after the exercise already stopped. Midoriya had to be transported to the infirmary on a stretcher, unconscious, a mix of blood and bile trickling down his chin. Then you heard an ominous cracking sound when Bakugo punched Midoriya in the face like breaking bones. He really hoped Midoriya wasn't hurt too badly. Uraraka didn't look very happy as well, he noted. Despite their brilliant win, her expression turned into horror as she ran toward Midoriya with a worried, strangled noise. She was looking at the floor now, nervously playing with her fingers.
Congratulations on your win,
All Might said. The entire class, sans Midoriya, grouped around him.
Do not worry too much, young Uraraka. Young Midoriya will be fine in a heartbeat thanks to recovering girls' talents. Now, I would like to review the performance with you all. Tell me, young Uraraka, it was clear you both had a plan. Can you explain to us what happened?
She hesitated before taking a deep breath and finally looking up. It was all Midoriya's idea. He knew that Bakugo would try to attack him, so in the 5 minutes we had to prepare, we studied a code.
A code?
All Might asked, surprise in his voice. Yes, this way we could communicate without giving away our plan or position. His plan was to lead Bakugo to the room right under where the nuke was and open a path for me, and he also guided me, making sure Bakugo wouldn't notice as I trailed close to them. It was a simple code, but effective. He clicked his tongue like this, and she made the sound herself. 1 time for right, 2 times for left, a louder one to let me know when he individualized the position of the bomb relative to me. Tenya blinked, thoroughly impressed. At his side, Bakugo was literally trembling. Once he opened the path for me and told me in which direction the bomb was, all I had to do was to use my quirk to jump to it before Ida could catch me, Uraraka said before adding a final whisper. We only won thanks to Midoriya. Tenya wasn't sure, but he had the distinct impression All Might was literally gleaming with pride. Izuku came to with a gasp.
Oh, you are awake.
The voice made him think of an old lady, as a rather small light made its way toward him.
Let me see,
she says. Small hands guide him up in a sitting position, fingers on his cheeks. He hisses when a sting of pain comes from the left side of his face.
It's gonna stay bruised for a couple of days, but the damage has been repaired with no issue. Go to bed early today. You need to rest.
Izuku says dumbly. Who are you? There's a moment of silence, and he has the distinct impression the old lady is studying him.
I'm Recovery Girl. I'm responsible for the infirmary.
Then she sighs.
You are one of those.
Izuku doesn't have the time to get offended at the word before she continues.
I'm sure I will see you here often. Here, take your candy.
She slaps something in his hand.
Don't make that face, young man. You came in with eternal bleeding and a broken jaw and cheekbone on the second day of school. If I had a fidelity card, you'd be one of those that fills it in a week.
Izuku dutifully gulps down his candy, not daring to speak. The pain on the left side of his face makes much more sense now.
You are good to go. I'm sure you can catch the rest of your lesson if you hurry,
she says, jumping down the bed he's sitting on.
And tell All Might on my behalf to please be more careful with his lesson next time.
Something in her tone makes him shudder. Thanks. I will. He stammers, giving a little grateful bow before closing the infirmary door behind him and sprinting in a jog back toward the training grounds. Confused. He meets the class halfway, just as they came back from the training ground. Oh, I missed it, he pouts, Uraraka's light sprinting towards him. Midoriya, are you okay? She asks, worry clear in her voice. She hisses through her teeth. That bruise looks bad. It's nothing. Recovery girl patched my face up just fine, he replies with a little smile. He decides to skip about the internal bleeding. She really doesn't need to know about that. How did the others do? I really wanted to assist.
Young Midoriya, a word, please.
Both he and Uraraka flinch, and she whispers a little, good luck, before slipping in their class with the others. All Might's hand is heavy on his shoulders.
My boy, you've done good. Technically speaking, he says in a low voice, your plan was quite effective and you've worked well with young Uraraka taking advantage of a quick. It was a success. But
Izuku turns his head up toward his idol, silent.
please try to tone down the self-sacrificing. As much of a good move that was, in a real combat situation, taking so much damage would put you out of commission, turning you into a liability for your partner. In order to be able to help others, you must also be able to help yourself first.
Izuku blinks, mulling on the words. It's true that he planned to take the hit in the first place, and it's also true that hadn't this been just a training exercise, a hit like that would surely turn him into a useless deadweight for whoever he might be working with. I'm sorry, he says, voice low. I'll try to keep that in mind.
Good. Now go, I'm sure your classmates have a lot to say to you.
The hand on Izuku's shoulder squeezes gently, All Might's voice lowering.
Unofficially speaking, I'm very proud of you. Good job.
Izuku was sure his chest might explode with the praise, and he gives himself a couple of seconds to calm down as All Might walks away from him. Oh, All Might, sir? He calls out, remembering.
Yes?
Recovery Gold told me to tell you to be more careful next time. Izuku says, embarrassed. Please?
Understood. Thank you, young Midoriya.
Izuku cannot be sure, but he has the distinct impression All Might shuddered too. As soon as he opens the door, he's assaulted. I don't know how you came up with that, but that was like so amazing. Kirishima, that's his name, Izuku is pretty sure, sounds excited. I liked your moves. Did you study hand-to-hand combat? A female voice intervenes. I'm actually Domina. The way you dodge is great. I'm all sweet too, but calming too. I liked your fight.
Hey, Amakito Sato.
Izuku lets out a little nervous laugh. Thanks, everyone. It's nice to meet you. He spends some minutes chatting with his classmates, finally having the chance to properly introduce himself until he notices the absence of a certain very familiar light. Maybe you guys can tell me something. Kachan! His heart is beating in his throat. He's not sure why he's doing this, but there's something that makes him feel like he can't just leave things like that. Kachan has stopped, barely turning to him. He takes a deep breath. Today I tried with everything I had to win. Kachan doesn't answer. And still, I made it out completely destroyed. No matter what, you are stronger than me in every way, but... There's a beat of silence. Izuku looks directly at Kachan, his mouth in a thin line. But I will surpass you one day with my own strength. Just wait. What the fuck are you even talking about, shithead? Kachan replies in a low voice through gritted teeth. You won. You beat me. Kachan's breath shudders in his chest as he completely turns around. You won! Did you even that round face totally tricked me. And that stupid ice guy, it's so... They're all... Kachan's light is jittering with nervous energy, and when he speaks next, Izuku hears the tears in his voice. Hear me out, Deku. From this moment on, I'm going to become the number one. And you will never beat me again, or be clear. Izuku feels All Might approaching from behind fast as a thunderbolt before he can even think of how to reply.
My boy,
All Might says, standing near Kachan's light.
Self-confidence is very important.
He doesn't need to hear this. Izuku turns around, leaving All Might at it. Those words are not for him. Those words are meant for Kachan now. The distance between him and Kachan that Izuku always felt was an entire mountain range high in the sky, impossible to surpass, transformed. He could finally see Kachan's back. Aizawa sighed, thinking about at the evaluations Toshinori had given him the evening prior. Most students seemed to act in line with what he'd expected of them, except for those glaring 3 outliers. Ida had strangely been very passive during the exercise, not something he'd expect from someone as serious and dutiful as him. When he told him so in class, the boy nodded, looking contrite. I'm aware of my shortcomings, he replied. It won't happen again, sir. Aizawa nodded, seeing no need to add anything else. He then turned to those other two. Bakugo. Aizawa noticed the boy's nervous, competitive to a fault attitude. But he'd be lying if he said he did not get surprised reading his evaluation. The way he acted seemed really extreme. You are better than this, Aizawa reprimanded, patting his hand on the pile of sheets. Stop acting like a child. You're wasting your talent. I know, the boy replied, voice low and serious. As for the last one, Midoriya Izuku surely seemed to have a bad habit. While it had won him a place into the rankings, the way he acted during the exam could be considered almost suicidal. During the hide-and-seek test, when he'd claimed that last point, hadn't Aizawa been there, Midoriya would have fallen directly into concrete, and there is no saying whenever he would survive that fall or not. And yesterday, he actually planned to take a direct hit from Bakugo in order to win. This would not do. Midoriya, while your plan was cunning, you've openly decided to take a hit in order to win. Aizawa says, watching the boy jump in surprise. Let this be the last time you voluntarily jump into a situation where you know perfectly well you will get hurt, or possibly even die. Are we clear? Midoriya's hand is running up and down his arm, a frown on his face. Yes, sir. Okay, that is all. Now, I don't like to tell you with so little notice. A strange atmosphere fills the room, all the students tensing. But we need to pick a class president. The mix of relieved sighs and exclamations of, that's so normal! It's almost amusing. I got 3 votes? Izuku stammers, shocked. Who would even vote to vote for him? Who voted for Deku? Yep, right on point. Midoriya? Yaoyorozu calls him and he stumbles at her side in front of the class, his head light. Well, Midoriya as president, Yaoyorozu as vice president. Glad you didn't waste too much time on this. Aizawa Sensei says, bored. Now back to your desks. I have a lesson to go through. During lunch, sitting with Uraraka and Ida, Izuku says, I don't think I will be up to the task, to be honest. Nonsense, Ida interrupts him. You have heart and good judgment. I know you have what the class needs. That's why I voted for you. Izuku is left speechless. Ida, that clearly sounded like he wanted very badly to be president himself, voted for him. I agree, Uraraka adds. With what Ida said, I voted for you too. She clearly sounds embarrassed, hastily adding, by the way, Ida, are you from an upper-class family? You always sound so proper. Izuku wants nothing but to be able to mull over what even is going on right now. When Ida reveals to them that he's the younger brother of the hero Ingenium, and well, Izuku is still a fanboy to heart at the end of the day. Then pure chaos happens and Izuku cannot do anything but let himself be dragged away by a panicked crowd when Ida saves the day. For how happy and confused he is by the trust put into him, Izuku knows what the right thing to do is. Now, there's a thing I want to say. He's facing the class, Yaoyorozu at his side. He smiles. Ida has proven to be able to act properly in the time of need, and frankly, I think he's the better man for this job. I think Ida should be class president instead of me. Izuku is happy to hear that the idea is welcomed with enthusiasm by his classmates, and the badly hidden happiness in Ida's voice as he steps up and formally accepts the new role is enough to cement in Izuku's mind the idea he's done the right thing. Later, as he's putting his shoes ready to go home, Ida approaches him. Midoriya, thank you for what you've done today. No problem. What you told me at lunch, Izuku replies, facing him. It counts for me too. I'm sure you will do an amazing job, class president. He offers his fist, and Ida seems almost unsure, as if he's not used to this kind of camaraderie, before meeting it with his own, then sprinting home with an enthusiast bye. Uraraka catches up to him a couple of minutes later, chirping. Let's walk together. I was really surprised to hear you and Ina voted for me today, Izuku says after a while, filling the silence. His voice is unsure. I don't really think that I deserve that kind of trust. He notices she stopped walking only a few seconds later. Oh, Rebecca? Midoriya? Her voice is serious in a way he never heard before. You know everyone in class already looks up to you, right?
Izuku is left speechless, stupidly blinking.
In only 3 days of school, you've shown us all that you're capable and smart and kind, she continues. Everyone, me and Ina included, thinks very highly of you. Do not ever forget that.
He doesn't know how to reply to that.
Somehow it feels as if Uraraka just saw right through him.